Ciao friends, welcome to Simple Italian Cooking, it's Liz. Really glad you're here. We're going to be going over a different type of pesto recipe that doesn't use pine nuts. Instead, we're using cashews. And I'm really excited to do this particular recipe. And it's super easy. So make sure to also check out my other pesto recipes if you're looking for different ways to use it. There's a lot of information to talk about when making a pesto, and I don't want to bore you, so I will try and keep it brief. But basically, my goal here today is if you're not familiar with making pesto, or you've made it before and you haven't used cashews, pine nuts are expensive. I mean, not that cashews are cheap, but cashews are a lot more readily available. You can get them at any grocery store, or, like I know they sell them at the Aldi here, but they don't sell pine nuts. And pine nuts they're hard to cultivate, so they are just naturally more expensive. So a lot of times we look for alternatives, and cashews is one of those nuts that we can do that with. So here's what you need. Now, I want to be clear. When making pesto, you need to make sure that you're doing it to your particular tastes. What's involved is standard. How you make it in here, and I'll tell you what to do if you don't have a food processor, this is a no-brainer, okay? Whatever you're using, whether you're using a blender, a NutriBullet, a Ninja, just some small blender, or you're using a food processor, you pulse it for a few times to the consistency that you want. So that's how easy it is to make. But the only challenge is getting the right ratio of ingredients that you like. So for this particular recipe, I want more of the cashew flavor coming through, and the cheeses, so I'm actually going to be cutting back on the cheeses a little bit more so than in some of my other recipes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the basil. I'm just using regular Italian basil, Genovese basil. You want to make sure to get rid of any long stems like this, so I'll try and zoom in. Hopefully you can see it. But you want to get rid of that because you just don't want pieces of stem in your pesto. So just make sure that all the long ones are gone. Before I continue, if you enjoy Italian recipes and you like to learn about Italian recipes that you can make it in your own home that tastes better than what you can get out and about, especially when it comes to pesto. Oh boy, I bought a jar of pesto one time not too long ago. I said, I'm going to try it. Let me tell you, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I looked at the ingredients. I'm actually going to do a video about it because the ingredients were like, they didn't even use olive oil. It was like they did, but it was at the end of the list. They used sunflower oil was their first one. How are you going to have good flavor if like extra virgin olive oil is not your primary ingredient outside of the basil? I don't get it. But anyway, oops, I'm missing my blade. Okay, that always helps. All right, so I'm putting the basil in, and I'm using about 2 cups. Now, this is standard. So when you're doing this, 2 cups is about 45 to 60, probably more 50 to 60, depending on the size of your leaves. So, but you want it to be about at least 2 cups of fresh basil leaves, okay? Don't try and use like your frozen ones from last year. Okay, now I'm using a Cuisinart food processor. You can use any kind that you want. Okay, so I'm adding my cashews. I'm going to go ahead and add my cheese. I'm going to add literally probably about 1/16 of a cup of my romano. If it's a little light, I can add some in manually. I really don't want a lot of romano. Romano is a very strong flavor. A little goes a long way. I use more of it in my other pestos, but for this particular one, I'm going to cut back on it. Again, if you really like it, add a little bit more. Okay. But don't worry, that's not the only amount of cheese we're putting in. We're putting in some Parmesan. Now, if you don't have Romano, don't worry about it. Just compensate with the Parmesan. I'd rather have you use all Parmesan than all Romano if you have to choose between the two. And I'm like a diehard fan of Romano, okay? But there are certain applications that you just don't want that to be your primary. I mean, if it is, it is. Just don't use as much. It's just that it's going to be such a strong flavor, it can overshadow the other ingredients. So, I'm always so hesitant to tell people, like, this is the right way. Because I could tell you it's the right way based on what? My opinion, my history, my background. But if you don't like it and all you needed to do was a few tweaks, but I'm like, hey, no, you can't do that, then like that just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not like that. So I'm going to do a little bit more than an eighth of a cup. All right, so yeah, I think I'm going to do a quarter of a cup. This is an eighth of a cup that I have here. So, but I'm going to do a quarter. So a quarter of a cup of the Parmesan and a little less than an eighth of a cup on the Romano. And then I'm doing about I'm doing a third of a cup of olive oil. I have a feeling I'm going to want to add some more, but I'm going to hold off for right now. So I do not make pesto like all the time. And a lot of times when you make it, you just kind of throw stuff together and you're not really actually measuring. So, but if you want the printed recipe, check out the link below and go to my website, and it will be there, and you can print it out and save it and all of that. Just make sure to sign up for my newsletter because you're going to get more recipes that are just like really super simple, and I really break it down because Italian cooking should not be hard. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on, and we're going to go ahead and pulse this a few times. And by pulsing, I don't mean a tap. I mean like hold it down for like 1 second, 1 second, 2 seconds, and that should probably be it. And you notice I didn't add any salt. So in my classic pesto, I do add additional salt. Really doesn't need it though. It's just that that's supposed to be more salty, but for this one, and especially if your cashews are salted, mine are unsalted, so keep that in mind. If they're salted, you probably don't need additional salt because you're going to get enough of that salty flavor from the cheeses, especially from Romano. Okay, let's take a look here. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm going to have to do this even more because the cashews are still pretty big in there, and I really want it to be smooth. So this is going to have to be a smoother texture. Yeah, that looks good. They resemble like the pine nut, traditional kind. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it a taste here. And two things that I'm checking for with this. I'm checking for the texture, that I like the feel of it, and I'm also checking for the flavor and see if I need to adjust any of those quantities. That was really good. And I got a kick from the garlic. So really just the right amount of cashews for my particular taste. So with this recipe, I will probably use for spreading on some toast. I also think I will probably make a tomato salad using this with just a little bit of because tomatoes and basil go so well together. So mixing it in with some cherry tomatoes and it'd be delicious. So again, let me go ahead and show this. Now, listen, if you want yours to be thinner, okay, I need to get a bowl here. If you want your pesto to be really thin, like smooth and creamy and all of that, then what you're going to want to do is pulse it a few more times. So I'm happy with this. And the cool thing is like, okay, let's talk about storing this because a little pesto goes a long way. So you're going to want to put it in some ice. Tip I learned from my mom, she does. She puts it in ice cube trays. So that way when she needs it, she can just pull out a little bit at a time because a little goes a long way. You're not going to use like all of this, in a single serving of pasta. So it doesn't look like a lot, but I said, can't say it enough. A little goes a long way. So, okay. So I'm going to use the silicone scraper here. And you can see, hopefully, that this is very, very chunky. But this is the way that I like it. And that's why with this particular recipe with pesto, it really is to taste. Because it's everybody seems to like it different. So take what I've given you, and use that as a starting point. Use that as your base. Do a recipe using my ingredients or my measurements, and then you decide, you want a little bit more of this, you want a little bit less of that. Try it again. So, all right. So this is it. This is what your pesto is going to look like, and you're going to love it. And, well, hopefully. So if you enjoyed this recipe, please give a thumbs up, and really, really, really do appreciate that. It really, really helps. And make sure to subscribe and like, and if you have your own way, other nuts that you like to use, or if you do it differently with your cashews, let me know in the comments below, because I love to hear about all the ideas. And plus it'll help other people that are kind of like scrolling through the comments. So, but anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your pesto with cashews. Grazie e ciao.